Welcome to the Lifestyle Property Podcast. I'm Jamie Greaves, your host and professional property investor. I'm here to bring you insights, home truths and powerful stories about what really goes on in property investment, business and growing your dream lifestyle. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the Lifestyle Property Podcast, and welcome to episode 7, which is titled How I Grew My Property Portfolio. So how exactly did I grow my portfolio? And I promise it's going to be packed full of insights and lessons for you. So let's get into it without delay. So how did I secure my financial freedom? Well, really, I followed all the tips that I explained on last week's podcast, really. So I focused firstly on cash flow, okay, because cash flow brings time freedom. And I chose SA, Airbnb, holiday letters to focus on. And bloody grateful I did. I got myself a mentor to guide me and coach me. I got the knowledge and I took action. Okay, so I followed the tips from last week. And this is exactly how I did it. Okay, so I started in Rent to SA. Okay, because I wanted to go full-time into property, and Rent to SA was a quick way of doing so. Okay, it's a cash flow strategy and it's a low barriers to entry, and it's quicker than buying naturally, given the broken conveyancing process in the UK. So that's where I started. I started in Rent to SA. And I learned in that process to focus on my strengths and team up with other people. So my strengths were, I quickly identified that my strengths were in finding and securing and negotiating deals. So I became excellent at it, sourcing deals for us, because I realised that I'd had a decade-long career within commercial environments of marketing and business development, and it really suited finding deals, and I love the kind of numbers aspect of it. So that's a huge lesson, and then a huge reason for why I was able to build. I didn't go alone. And I focused on what I was good at, and I outsourced and leveraged other people. So I realised I was not going to be good at management, so we employed third-party managers, made it very, very passive. Okay, I realised I'd be no good at refurbs and setups, and I either business partners of mine did that amazingly, or if not active, then I'd employ someone to do that, and focus on what we're good at. Okay, that's a huge tip. It's really big. This is how I did it. So I focused on my strength, and my strength has always been sourcing deals. I love it. It's when you're feeling flow, then that's what we want to do. And we'll all be strong in different areas. So as I've looked back up on my investment portfolio, there's really 4 blocks. There's sourcing deals, handling the finance, getting them refurbed and set up, and then the management. You will be really good at one of them. You can become world class at one of them and very good at another one. Okay, so 2, and you don't want to do everything. That's why teamwork makes the dream work, and all those Instagram quotes are really, really true. Okay, so focus on what you're going to be strong at. Maybe you're opposite to me and complementary. Maybe you're going to love the refurb and setup. It's really popular that, there are lots of people who've got an eye for interior design. I don't, but if you do, it works really, really well. Or maybe you're going to focus on management, guest management. Maybe you're excited to not use third parties, but do self management and do certain systems for that and get that set up. So focus on what you're going to be good at, and that's what I did. So I grew. So to start with, how I grew my property portfolio, which this podcast is about, packed full of lessons for you. I started within Rent to SA. Okay. And I was very ethical how I work, very ethical, very open, very transparent with landlords and agents. So Rent to SA doesn't work on every property, doesn't work in every area, doesn't work with every landlord or agent. But I worked very ethically with those who understood it and it liked well. And something that I did right, did lots of things wrong back then. Those 4 or 5 years ago, no one's perfect. And I've learned significantly since then, but I did think big. Okay, so we took on blocks of apartments. We once took on an entire street of new builds by contacting and building a relationship with a developer. Okay, but then when we took on the entire street, we knew that we couldn't take on all of those ourselves. Okay, because it was just it would have taken too long to set them all up. So we very naturally fell into sourcing for other investors as well, because I kept being asked, would you find me a deal? Would you find me a deal? I was, I'm not really interested. I'm finding my own deals. But then it happened very, very naturally. Okay, so then I started sourcing deals for other investors as well as finding my own, and that suited me because it matched my strengths and my experience, and I enjoyed it, and I loved finding deals. And I realized, and you'll learn this over time, that in an area where you're in flow, and time flies, and you're getting results, and other people struggle in that area, then you found your genius, you found your area of expertise. And that happened to be mine. So I really focused on finding brilliant deals for myself and ourselves, but also then for other investors as well, and portfolio building for them, which I really, really love, because you get to know people and you're helping them achieve financial freedom. Brilliant. Now, obviously, I'm much better these days because I've had 4 or 5 years more experience, but that's where I started, and it's how I grew my portfolio. And maybe I'll cover deal sourcing as a whole episode maybe later on, because it's something that I feel very passionate about, because I see lots of idiots out there who are not very good. And I don't recommend starting in deal sourcing. I think it's broken. It's not. You shouldn't start in deal sourcing because you don't know what a good deal is. You've not made the mistakes yet. You don't want to start there. And it's feast or famine. You might sell one, not sell 5, not sell. You can't control the pipeline of when deals come up. So focus on growing your own portfolio first. And then if you love that aspect of finding deals and securing deals, then you can bolt on deal sourcing later and do it very ethically, because you want to come from a position of know-how. You don't want to sell bad deals. You don't want anyone else to lose a penny. So that's best doing it through experience. So that's something that happened very naturally for me, in that I didn't mean to become a deal sourcer. I was growing my own portfolio and I just kept being asked to. So if you can do it in that order, it's definitely better. Okay, so this is where I started out. I started in rent to SA to replace my former salary, and it did. I'm really, really grateful for that. Now I look back, and as you move into buying assets, there might be some rent to SAs that you give back because they've served their purpose, and maybe they need a bit more investment, and it's not worth it. But it's a brilliant short-term business. There's actually some that I still have in the portfolio in the background, because they're incredibly passive. When I think of passive, I've not been to them, seen them, touched them, felt them in 4 years. Okay, I mean, I've not done anything. We get sent a monthly statement from the SA manager. I look at that. Yep, sweet, thank you. They're excellent at what they do. Remember, guys, teamwork. So if you don't want to manage your properties, you don't need to. Now, obviously, maybe that's another episode. Oh, look, every time I get an idea, I'm creating more work for myself, but it'll be more value for you guys. So it's all good in that, how to choose a good management company, because it's a huge one, that. And yeah, when you get that right, then it's completely passive, because they're busy growing their business, growing the management side of it, and you can do what you're good at. But maybe that'll be you. Maybe you'll be the management company. So just look after investors really, really ethically. So that's where I started. Okay, and it's something that I still do in the background now, but I really wanted to buy assets. That was the lifelong dream. But also, as soon as your head gets turned and you understand assets and liabilities and inflation and interest rates and financial freedom and everything, you want to buy assets. And it's really in the buying of assets which give us not just generational wealth, but we pass it on to our families, and we create a legacy, and there's more profit in them, because obviously mortgages are a lot cheaper than rent. I say obviously, I'm assuming certain bits of knowledge that you guys have, but naturally rent is always higher than mortgage, so a landlord can earn a profit on that unit. But when you buy the asset, you've got more control of the asset long term, but also there's a better margin. So rent to say is a brilliant business, but I see it and I recommend it and teach it as being a 2 to 3 year short-term cash flow business to get you full-time, to build up your experience, to build up your credibility, and then as soon as we can, that's what I was doing, as soon as we can, move into buying assets. Okay, and this is what's been life-changing for me. This is what's given me complete and utter time, location, financial, if you want to go down the rabbit hole, emotional freedom, it's been since buying assets. So we then went out and bought SAs and Airbnbs and holiday lets, which I'm really, really grateful for. And I followed the tips that I covered last week, and obviously many others as well. So I focused on cash flow, I had teamwork around me. I got help, I got support. Importantly, I didn't try and go alone. I got belief, I took action, and then we ended up growing and scaling a very large SA and holiday let portfolio. Really, really grateful. And this includes buying, at one period, we bought 18 properties in 18 months. Now, I don't recommend you go that quick, but we went hell for leather. And oh my, I could do a podcast. I could pack valuable tips and lessons from each purchase into each episode. Maybe that's an idea. Maybe I'll do literally, this is Abbey Farmhouse, this is the Manor House, this is Corker, this is Tivoli Guest House. I've got so many to go through because every deal contains rich stories and you learn from each one. And generally speaking, every deal gets better. Every single deal gets better because you've got more experience, you've got more know-how. If you make any mistakes, if you've got a growth mindset, you won't make them again. If you journal and reflect, and this is what I was doing in the background. I learned these things like manifestation and journaling, and they really, really helped. I thought they were a little bit hippy-dippy to start with, but now they really did. So you name it, we bought it. Very, very gratefully. So farmhouses, hotels, blocks of apartments, cottages. I'm really, really proud looking back and started from scratch. Okay, so if I can, you can. It shows it can be done. And the thing I loved about investing and what I chose to do within holiday lets and Airbnb is I chose to stay highly focused but diversified. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Because this is a valuable tip for you, whatever your strategy is or your area for this. If you can be highly focused but diversified, you're winning the game, okay? So what I mean by that is I've not just bought 25 holiday lets, luxury holiday lets, okay? We've got a combination of different types. So within my sector, which is SA Airbnb holiday lets, I've got some which are contractor places. Okay, so think towns and cities, people working away from home. We provide them what I call medium-term stays, really profitable. People stay for weeks and months, not days. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Quite often they can be full 24/7, 365 days a year. Okay, just amazing assets. So yeah, we might do our break even at 50% and expect it at 70%, but when they're full, I tell you what, they're absolute no-brainers, absolute cash cows. But then on the other spectrum, I've got luxury holiday lets, okay, big, beautiful places with, your hot tubs and your pool tables. And this is people are staying for days, not weeks, maximum a week normally, and they're on holiday with friends and family. And it's really advantageous to get to a position of diversification. Okay, because if anything change, we can pivot. We change. We get enough income from one that to substitute the other, and it's a very, very risk-free place to be. So I was highly focused but diversified, and how to do that is by being very, very focused, and then just pivot when you're ready to. So once you've got enough of one, you then pivot. So that might be going to do it. That another way of doing it is in location. Okay, so we might invest in one area. Let's say that you're based in Southampton. Okay, just really randomly. You might get your portfolio in Southampton, whatever that be in the strategy. And then once you've got that and you've learned how to find deals and finance and refurb and systemize and done it all correctly, you may then go into Portsmouth. Okay, only then. But once you've built that, don't do one and one. You go and get half a dozen or a dozen in one, and then you go to the other area, for example. And that's another way you can diversify. Okay, because then if one area depreciates or goes down in popularity, the other one won't, and you can protect your risk. And this is how to build a very diversified portfolio in the long term by being hyper-focused. Okay, I'm getting a little bit advanced now, but I don't know your experience. I'm just being raw and honest, and I've got 5 years experience to lean upon, which is advantageous for this podcast. So yeah, I've now got a very large portfolio. Okay, and I've bought this. So it depends how deep down the rabbit hole we want to go to. But I've naturally collaborated. So I've got business partners, joint venture partners, investors that I've worked with. I've worked very, very ethically. We've used bank finance. So we've used bridges, and I've used all types of finance. Maybe that'll be an episode as well in terms of when to apply what type of finance. But there's a right and wrong time to use bridging finance and a right and wrong way. There's a right and wrong way to use mortgages. There's a right and wrong way to do joint ventures and private loans and credit cards and you name it. But the beautiful thing to know, guys, is you can build a very large portfolio even if you don't have deposits. Okay, when I started growing the portfolio, my money was lost in that deal. So and then I eventually got it back, and then it went into one of our assets. But if you just focus on your own money, you're going to run out soon. Okay, again, this is maybe a topic for a different podcast, but properties are expensive. I don't care what you start with. So you might have $1 million in the bank, or you might have $1,000 in the bank, or anything in between. But sooner or later you run out. And if you follow anyone at a very large scale, this is something that I'm really grateful that I learned early on. Like people that have grown businesses for multiple decades. Okay, they talk about OPM, other people's money. Okay, and that might be the bank's money, for example. But if you can learn to do this, not just effective, but really ethically, that's my big tip for anyone using finance. You just want to look after people like family, communicate well, make sure none of your investors ever lose a penny. No, none of my investors have ever and will ever lose a penny. Never, ever, ever. I'd rather sell a property. I would sell a property. I'd sell all my properties before anyone loses a penny, because I have those values instilled in, because I know how hard work, how much when we save up our money the old-fashioned way, it's bloody hard work, isn't it? And when we're given inheritance, that that's got emotional ties. So you don't want to lose other people's money, not a penny of it. Okay, maybe a topic I'll go into. So that's been a way that I've been able to scale the portfolio, and I've worked with other people, and I focused on my strengths. Okay, so how did I go from one rent to SA to now a very large diversified portfolio? Is by focusing on my strengths. And now, obviously, I've got experience of other strategies as well. So while I know buy-to-let and I know HMO and I know flips and I've had involvement in them, I've kept very, very focused on my main baby. And yes, I've got knowledge and awareness and involvement in other strategies now, because I can diversify. But I focused on my baby until I grew it, and I'm really grateful that I did. So I've achieved my first goal. If you remember back to one of the first podcasts that I shared, I've gone through my two missions. So my first mission was to create lifestyle freedom, okay, for me and my family. And what I mean by that is not just financial freedom, but it's time freedom, it's location freedom. So I can live and work and travel anywhere I want, whenever I want. And I'm really grateful that I've got that. The income from the assets that we own pay me a salary and a dividend, which is equal to my lifestyle. Really grateful, brilliant. While I still currently live in Sheffield, that's because of family reasons. If not, I think, who knows, Argentina or South Africa or Canada. But that's a different thing for a different day. But that is a beauty of property. If you want to travel the world and keep growing your portfolio, you can. If you want to, one of our JV partners and good friend of mine now, him and his partner have just done, I think it was 6 months in Asia, and now he's in the van through Europe and just living his best life. And that's the power of property investment, because it can fuel your lifestyle. Okay. Personally, I just choose to take a holiday every 2 months, every 6 weeks, because I've got a family ties here, and I really appreciate being able to be there for them, to take them to medical appointments and to help them with things. I'm grateful to be in that position to do so, and that's really important to me in my stage of life now. And now I'm moving forwards now, because I'm going through my property portfolio, my experience for the value of yourself, and hopefully you can get lots of insights and lessons from it. Now I'm working on my mission. Okay, so my second mission now is to help other people. This is to help people through property investment. Okay, both people like you, yes, you, you listening, and also other people who society have overlooked. And that's what I learned when my brother went through his mental health episode. There's a lot of people where they're vulnerable, they're deprived, and that's a huge area. Special needs, mental health, homelessness, domestic violence, and I want to help there. And I've decided to help there through property investment in 2 ways. The main way is profit that I make in my capital business. So we want a starting cash flow. So SA and Holiday Let's pay me my salary, pay me my cash flow. That frees me up now. Okay, so other people might just travel the world now, and that's tempting. Other people might just keep growing for growing's sake. I've chosen now to somewhat pivot, and when I'm now making capital, okay, so if I do a flip now, and we're looking at a couple of flips, and we're actively doing a couple of flips now, the profit for me is going to fuel my mission. Okay, so that will be as simple as charity donations, but that'll be as more complicated as setting charities up. And if this podcast can support me in that mission accomplished. It really would be. And then also that there are strategies out there where you can help vulnerable. So things like supported living, social housing. But I just want to pour a bit of cold water on that, because often people want to help in those areas, but then we chase yield and then it doesn't actually help, and we're not supporting. And what I'd like to do, for example, is completely fuel and fund said projects for no profit. So imagine that. And this is the mission now of the business. So imagine doing supported living in beautiful places. Okay, then any profit that we make from it, so proceeds, we go back to that charity, so they can employ more care workers or take the residents on holidays. That's my mission. Okay, to really change lives, and that mission will grow. But that's where my heart is now. But I'm going to do what I'm good at. So I'm really good at finding deals. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to do that for our portfolio and then for other investors. Okay, I'm going to keep growing our portfolio, and I'm going to keep coaching and mentoring people because I love that as well. So I'm going to focus on what I'm good at, focus on my strengths. I'm going to outsource and teamwork everything else to keep growing the business towards my mission. Okay, and that's what I recommend you guys do. Once you've built your portfolio and you've achieved that level of financial freedom, you can then decide what's most important to you. Okay, do you want to just simply be the best mother, father, brother, sister you could possibly be? Okay, do you want to travel? And then we have those choices. So yeah, this is now my mission, is to help people just like you. And this podcast is part of the mission. So I hope in sharing my portfolio and how I grew my portfolio, I hope it was really valuable for you. I imagine it was. Now, if you'd like more lessons, obviously podcast is a little bit limited because there's no visuals and I can't go into such depth, and you'll be nodding off if you're driving if I take too long. But there's other formats as well. So if you'd like more lessons and more tips, I've got a free webinar. It's about 2 hours long in total, but you can pause it and watch it, pause it. We're all about how I grew my financial freedom. So everything that I've covered there in 20 minutes, I've got 2 hours on it, and I packed that full of tips and lessons, and it's been immensely popular. So I put it out on socials, I think, 9 or 10 months ago, and wow, hundreds of people fed back. Amazing, because it's just nice to give back. It really, really is. So if you'd like that webinar, you can have it free, no sign-ups, no email list, no silly shenanigans. I can't stand any of that. Just real, authentic value and honest insight. So yeah, the webinar is yours. So let me think of a good way of you getting it. So you can either pop a webinar. So if you just drop me a line on social, say, hey, can I get the webinar, please? I'll drop my Facebook or my Instagram and my website on the show notes. So click on there. Feel free to connect with me. I love connecting with like-minded people, especially if you're following the podcast. Connect with me. You'll get other kind of videos and tips and tricks that way. And let's just stay connected and support one another. That'd be lovely. And yeah, just either just pop it on the website or just pop it on the socials. Can I get the webinar, please, Jamie? And you'll get it from me. So I love it. I love this. I love helping people. So give me a couple of days. I can't because I like enjoying my lifestyle. But I will give you the webinar. It's completely free, and I hope that'll be really useful for you as well. I'm sure it will be. Everyone that's had it said it's really, really valuable. So yeah, I hope that was useful, guys. Now next week, I'm gonna start to answer big questions. So far, I've been able to cover very light topics of introductory, but I'm going to cover a big topic. So next week is, why did I choose SA? Okay, why did I start with holiday lets and Airbnb as my investment strategy? I did a lot of research into these before deciding it, and it's probably my most common question. So I'm going to go into depth into that for you next week. That'll be amazing. I'm really excited for that. So have a lovely week. I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Lifestyle Property Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could leave us a review so we can reach and help more people. I'll also be giving one person who leaves a review a free family holiday to one of our luxury holiday lets. Thank you, and see you next time.